There we go.
I see the two handsome devils. That's a good sign. Not on there.
Still nothing. Hold on.
What else is I going to tell you? Doucette says we're not on, right?
No, our audio's live, so hold on. Yeah. Please hold. Come on. There's that. There's that. All right, so there's that one. Please hold. Okay, we're actually here this time. Hey, everybody. Thank you for Technical Director Josh for taking care of that little snafu for us. It is Maine Athletic Fundraising Football Friday here from the Spectrum Healthcare Partners Studios. Across the MBR Radio Network, we'll have games for you tonight. Oxford Hills Bonnie Eagle and a rematch of a big game from last year. That'll be on 92.7 WOXO tonight. Also right here on the MBR Facebook page. And we'll also have Edward Little at Scarborough for you tonight as well. We're originally going to have a game at Coney, but we'll explain more about that later. Just a little bit, though. Just a tiny bit. And I'm going to do it in a nice way. Okay? All right. I'm not going to do the old day thing. Like, okay. I'm too old for that now.
It's not going to be a rant?
It doesn't make any sense. It'll be a silent, quiet rant, right? I mean, that'll be kind of what that does. Also want to shout out the Philadelphia Eagles last night for beating the Packers. Not that I really care so much about the Eagles, but one thing. Carson Wentz, starting quarterback for the fantasy football team. Also, Packers fans, many of them are terrible human beings. And honestly, just seeing Aaron Rodgers lose is joy. It's heart.
Yeah. Yep.
It's like... It's right there,
He's
right?
He's not on the top of my list.
No, he is not. He's not anywhere near where I want to be on anything, really, is really what it boils down to. Hold on, my technical director said sounds and looks good now. All right, we're in the building.
We're good.
We're good. If I could just find someone with a funky
A
little
little,
head thing to fix that, that'd be good too.
a little small Allen wrench that's incredibly small,
And can
and
go sideways.
it has to have an L, and it can only
Correct.
be about a millimeter long. I mean, it's
Right.
nothing. Yeah.
Yes. Because if it doesn't, then you're not getting anything.
I want to know who designed the thing.
I don't know. I'm not sure. Not a fan, and I'm not sure what they were doing. So,
So I'm going to.
you're going to Bonnie Eagle
I
tonight.
go to Bonnie Eagle with Dancing with the Stars.
Yes.
Is going with me tonight.
Yes. For those of you who don't know, had a thing coming up tomorrow, and wanted to get the had a thing coming up tomorrow with Ken Hodge. Ken Hodge is going to be the Twin City Thunder opener. Have a chance to interview him. I thought it was last week. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to be involved. And Coach Wing was out last week. So I asked Aaron, I'm like, Aaron, you think maybe that's something you could pull off, right? You know, Aaron's interviewed a few people before. And turns out that Aaron was not able to do that because he's taking dancing lessons for his wedding. So I didn't want to, good for him. Really, I'm appreciative of it, you know, works out great. But yeah, that was
So I've been calling him Dancing with the Stars.
Dancing with the
and,
Stars. Yes.
So we're doing the game tonight. It'll be fun to do it. I haven't done a game with him for a while, and it'd be good to do that. Kind of get back in the saddle there, and I'll do some color. And he does a great job with play-by-play. But that should be a good ball game. You know, we said before that Bonnie Eagle kind of had some things to prove. They were 5-4 last year, and they don't like that kind of a record.
That's not a Bonnie Eagle-ish
That's
year,
not what
you
Coop
know.
is shooting for, I don't think. And there was a lot of talk of how determined they were and so on. And so Oxford Hills, they had a little stumble, which they did last year against Sanford before they really
It's a
came on
long
strong.
road trip. That's a tough quarterback to prepare for. You can't really you don't prepare for Xavier Levine. You know, you get to talk about him a little bit earlier in the unaired segment while we were trying to get this thing worked out. And you know, you talk about athletes like that. You can't simulate that guy in practice.
No,
you
you've
know
got
what I
nobody
mean?
that can go over there and play that.
No.
And what makes him so great is he's stuck. You almost got him trapped, and he uncorks a crazy pass in the end zone, and Bickford goes up over everybody, picks it out of the air for either a big gain or a touchdown. You can't program that. You can't run it in practice and so on. So you know, they did stumble, but they're a quality team with quality coaching, and I would expect that to be a tough ball game. The Meredith kid from Bonnie Eagle, the quarterback, is very good. I think they would prefer to run the ball, I believe, if it would be what Coop would say. And that should be a good one. That should tell us a little bit more about what Class A is going to look like. Because we've said those are a couple of the teams that, you know, right now Bonnie Eagle's up near the top because they've faced some tough competition and won. But this will be interesting to see how that fits in and how Class A is going to look.
Yeah, I mean, it's all going to be. Class A is definitely everything's new this year. You know what I mean? It really is.
Well, it's a whole new thing, and it's interesting. I guess I never asked anybody why they decided there are 8 teams, so there's 7 games, and you got to cross over. Now, there's a couple of choices. You could play another team the second time.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody really wants to do that in football. If you can
Especially
help it.
because you know what, you end up having to play them again in the playoffs
Yeah, then you're going to
too
play them
most
in
of
the
the
playoffs,
time.
so too much. And so they crossed over with Class B, but instead of playing 8 games, which we've been playing now for a while, I'm going to say 15 years. How long did they go to an 8-man schedule? Because when I coached in Skowhegan, we played 9 games, regular season. Anyway, so they went to 2 crossover games, which makes 9 games, which, okay, is a little different. I don't mind. It's great, but it's a little different. And I thought they would say, okay, so only the top 4 of the 8 make the playoffs. But everybody's going to make the playoffs. So I'm not sure what the 9 games was all about. So it made it interesting. Class B did not need, I've asked, Class B did not need a crossover games. They've got plenty of Class B teams.
There's way too. In fact, there's probably too many classes.
Too many.
There's a whole bunch of schools that think they're Class B when they should be Class A or Class C.
Yeah, no, that's right.
Like
No matter how, I've been on that committee classification and trying to decide where the number is, because sometimes it's within 5 kids.
Right.
And the numbers are always in arrears. You never have this year's numbers, and classification is for 3 years. So you're running on last year's and 2 years and 3, that kind of stuff. And so you suddenly put somebody into classification. It happened to Biddeford. Biddeford thought they wanted to play up, and when they looked at what their enrollment was going to look like and their team or whatever, they repetitioned to stay in B.
Yeah, maybe not, right?
And
let's do something different.
And so I think those are all really difficult situations. I think everybody thinks classification's easy. Of all the committees, and I sat on most of them through the years, that really is one of the toughest ones, because somebody has to be the smallest team in a division, and and then there's somebody that's the largest in the next division down, that kind of thing. It makes that kind of difference. That 8 to 10 kids, and suddenly you're in a classification up a little higher, and now you're in a much more difficult bracket in any sport, especially in football, but in any sport. Or 10 kids left and less, and or if the number's different, and they are different for every sport, because it depends on how many schools play the sport, what the numbers are. The number for basketball and soccer, which most everybody plays, are very different than they are for football and field hockey, which everybody doesn't play. So it's a much more complex than people understand that it is. And so anyway, that's always a backdrop for that. What should we do with Marshwood? Just because they win doesn't mean you should put them up in another classification. They don't have the kids. They simply have a great tradition and great coaching. Okay, that's a good start. Yeah, so anyway, those things are always very complex, and I've talked with each of the coaches, sometimes on the record, as you've heard in the interviews, sometimes before or after the interview, about some of what their solutions might be for, we always have some lopsided scores, but what to do about that team that's suddenly we went through this when I was principal at Oak Hill for several years. We were, one time in the classification, we were the smallest Class B school, and we were playing Gardner and teams like that. That's a tough road. It really is, because you're the smallest school, and that means some of those schools are 400 or 500 kids bigger than you are.
Yeah,
that's another school.
That's a big stretch.
That's a huge stretch, and yeah. So anyway, and they try to make it even. You don't want 25 schools in one classification and 6 in another, but yet they kind of felt they had to this year in football. They kept trying to slide schools up into A who don't really belong there.
Well, it wasn't so much that they didn't belong there; they didn't want to be there. I mean, to me, when Marshwood played Thornton Academy this year, sure, they could have handled it,
sure.
Right? And it was basically a 2-school thing. Like from what I remember, there were 2 schools that didn't want to be up in A, and they went down to B instead, and that kind of threw everything off. Because if you'd had a 10-team Class A,
sure, you don't need any crossovers.
You don't need any crossovers, right?
Yeah,
I don't know, but I'm concerned. I'm not just concerned about football anymore, though.
Oh no, I can't remember which one it was, but I saw a tweet from somebody, one of the coaches of a really good girls basketball program, saying our numbers are so low, both in school and with our program, that I don't know if we're going to have a JV girls team. I mean, it's kind of like a couple years ago, JV baseball, no JV baseball at Oak Hill, one of the premier programs of baseball in the state of Maine for 25 years, maybe 30, and there's an ebb and a flow. Who's coaching it? Who's playing? What's the enrollment of the school? All those things change in a heartbeat, and even then, you don't know. You thought one of the years I thought I had a really good team. One of my best running backs moved. What are you gonna say, folks? You can't move?
Yeah. Hey, what do you think you're doing?
Another year, we had really the ingredients for another championship team. 2 weeks before the season, my quarterback broke a small bone in his neck water skiing. He hit something he didn't see and went over, and the doctor said there's no way he should play. It's too dangerous. Suddenly, you go in with a really good team. You don't have a quarterback. So nobody knows what's going to happen, and I use myself as an example. Kind of patting myself on the back a
Oh,
little
of
bit
course, yeah. You've never done that before.
No, I
No.
moved to Brewer as a sophomore. Walked in, the coach didn't know who I was. I moved from Portland, and I said I'd like to play football. He said, okay. I ended up being a 3-year starter in football for him. He didn't know I was coming. I don't know that changed the program that much, but so you don't know in high school sports. Or kids got to work. Something happened at home, and they need the kid to work, or other interests. High school sports, you just don't know. But I agree with you. I think it's going to hit all the sports. When you look at what the numbers used to be and what they are now. I mean, Water was in Class C football. I remember they had, close to 1,600 kids.
That's a lot of. That's a few.
Think about the drop in that.
Well, I mean, it's not just that sport. You read
Oh,
the
no.
article about hockey
no.
this week.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's not just. Look at some of the scores right now for some of the secondary sports, right? Like, the ones that aren't the field hockey, soccer, all this stuff, right? Every single sport now.
Yeah.
Like, there's a have and a have-nots.
For sure.
And the have isn't so much maybe money or anything like that. It's the have is they don't have kids.
No.
Right? Like, they don't have students that are playing. Right.
The haves are sometimes it's tradition. I look at Skowhegan. They've dropped way down in numbers. Has anybody seen any difference? They beat somebody the other day 9-0. And it was a pretty good team. Paula Dowdy's been there a long, long time. She's exceptional. They laugh in town that when you're born and you're a female, they give you a field hockey stick.
Yeah, I think they do, right?
And the other thing I think that let's just use the fall as an example because this is where we are. I look at Dirigo. Everybody's complaining they went to a JV schedule this year. They've got, the last numbers are 217 high school kids. So 100 of those are female.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody's going to be an athlete, much as we'd all like them to. So
this is shocking news, by the way.
So you're talking about a fairly small number to work with. They have football, and they have soccer, and they have cross country, because kids are interested in all those things. And if you're the school board and or the principal, AD, whatever, what are you going to cut out so that one of them can flourish? Those are very difficult. It's like when they cut the budget. I remember at Oak Hill when you're cutting the budget. What are you going to cut out for a sport? Their policy was last in, first out. Well, one of the last in from all of that was lacrosse. It's been one of their best programs. That doesn't make any sense. So it's complicated, and in a state that the population is old and not a lot of new kids coming in. And just think about all the schools that even we deal with and the enrollments, how much they've changed.
Oh, so much.
Oh, no question.
I mean, just from when I was in school, and which was
79
years ago.
Would you have ever thought that Jay and Livermore would combine for anything?
No.
Mexico, when I look at it, Mexico, Rumford, they were bitter. Well, so much so that Dirigo moved out because they didn't want to be involved. And now they don't want to go back. I've said to some of the Dirigo people that I know fairly well, it's not just the fact that they're missing out maybe on some sports. I always say you got that really bright kid, and maybe it's all the kids, but you got a kid that would really like a subject that you can't offer because you don't have enough kids. You can't make a class for one kid. You can't afford it. You can't tie up a teacher to have 2 kids in the classroom. You just can't. It's not economically. I don't care where your school is. But, you could combine with Rumford and Mexico, and you could have a calculus class, or you could have a whatever, because they've got 5, you've got 3. Pretty soon you got 15 kids. You could do that. Yeah, those are, we forget all those issues when we think about schools. There's a lot there.
There's
really
so
is.
much there. I mean, there's a ton of stuff that you've got to deal with and watch for and things like that. So for the coaches that we've got right now, and for some of these coaches, it hasn't been their best year. How's the attitude for all of them? They embracing the challenge? I mean, odds are most of them are all going to be in some. They're either, most of them aren't going to have huge records this year. So it's kind of like, what for them, it seems like they're keeping the excitement level up at least, right?
Well, I texted you 2 weeks ago and I said, "Oh boy, 5 of the 6 coaches that interview all lost,
Right.
and some
Yeah.
of them pretty lopsided." I wasn't looking forward to it. You know what? Not at all. What I found was you'll hear a little bit of it on Dave Sterling's interview. I started out by kind of give him a chance to vent a little bit, like, boy, a tough schedule, and he said, "Hey, they're all tough," and boom, went right on to this is what we got to do, and I said the same thing to Coach Hartley. They lost to Thornton. It was close until early in the third quarter. And then when it got out of hand, those things happen sometimes with a team that hasn't won, is it gets out of hand fast and it goes big. He was just as fired up as he was when I talked to him in preseason. I think it's the nature of who coaches are. It's all on your shoulders. That head coach has to be the bellwether, because if that person comes in down in the dumps every day, what do you think the team's going to do? They're not going to work hard. They're not going to push themselves. They're going to fight going in the weight room. I don't feel well today. All of that stuff. No. All of these coaches that we see, they're coaching hard. Are they disappointed they lost? I've said from having been a coach, it changes your personality. When you lose, like that whole season, they all go poorly for you. You're down in the dumps, and you need that support around you. Sometimes it's your wife that says, "It's going to be okay. You can do this." Sometimes the other coaches all getting together to say, we can do this. Okay, maybe we're not going to win this game, but we can play tough. And Darren Hartley said that a couple times. We may not win, but I want us to compete till the very last minute. I want us to be physically tough. And I think he would probably say to you that's what's happened. They haven't been on the right side of the scoreboard a couple times, but they fought till the end. They pulled the game against Bangor out. I think he looks at this game against Coney as a really challenge for him. But I found that generally. It's been, I got to be honest with you, I've kidded him about it and I've mentioned it on the air. It's really kind of fun and easy to talk to Hathaway every week. He's got a tremendous program. They've won. He's been successful. People like the atmosphere there. It's easy to talk to him because he's got good ideas about not that the others don't, but it's easy for him to be outgoing and gregarious and whatever because he won.
Right.
But I haven't found that reticence from any of the other coaches. I found him to be up to the challenge and let's go get them. We got a game tomorrow and we can do it. And I think they pass that on to their teams. Does it always work? No. There are very few teams that go undefeated ever. So,
Patriots, Bills, I am concerned about this football game. Bills have a chip on their shoulder. They're healthy-ish. Patriots aren't super duper healthy, I don't think. Not as healthy as they'd like to be. I don't think their offensive line is certainly as healthy. I mean, you may have a Marcus Cannon back this week. Still not impressed with this running game, and I think you're going to need to run to win in Buffalo.
They haven't been able to, and don't blame it on Sony Michel. Nobody could run through. There's no holes.
No, there's no holes at all. So for what he's been able to do so far, it's not him. And he doesn't have the burst. He doesn't have how do you have burst when you've got a dude on your leg?
Yeah.
There's no burst there.
And the left tackle has been sick 2 days this week.
So let's just hope everybody gets out of there without getting hit by a sex toy. I mean, that would be kind of the first thing. Step one, do not be hit by a sex toy, okay? Coming out of the stand, one of those rogue ones that just comes flying, as long as you avoid that, you're okay.
That's a good start.
Right? It's a good start. It's a good setup.
But they're being set up.
Right.
All the media is saying, the Patriots are doing part of their JV schedule.
Right.
Because their first 8 games are not against the cream of the crop. The second half is really difficult.
Right.
First half, not so much. And I've always said that Belichick's the best at not letting his team listen to any of that. His thing is, who are we playing this week? We don't care about anything else.
We'll see how it goes. I do not want to live in a world where the Buffalo Bills are undefeated and in first place because, I mean, one, you're not going to be able to get a folding table anywhere. Right. You're not going to be able to get a single folding table anywhere that you possibly go. So that'll be that. Twin City Thunder opening tomorrow night over at the Norway Savings Bank Ice Arena. Boston Bruins legend Ken Hodge will be there for that. We're looking to talk to him, and we'll get some interview stuff up for that tomorrow. Tonight's football games are all pretty simple, pretty straightforward. You get Edward Little at Scarborough. That one will be a 6:30 pregame. That'll be on Z1055 in Auburn. Video stream would be at MBR.org. And then we will also have the Oxford Hills Bonnie Eagle game for you tonight on video. That'll be on 92.7 WOXO. And video stream will be on the MBR Facebook page for that one. And Mountain Valley tonight at home, they are battling Camden Hills. Been a tough year for Mountain Valley so far. They're looking to get their ship righted as they take on Camden Hills. After tonight, they've only got 3 more games left because they're going to have a bye week between the 11th and the 25th. So going to be a real short season for Mountain Valley this year.
Yeah, I said that the bye, it's
missing out on Dirigo and losing that 1 week is
Yeah.
not. It's not great. It's not great.
And we've got some others with Orono not having a team also. That's the same thing there. And I talked with Bob Sinclair from Orono. He feels really badly. He has spent an inordinate amount of time with the youth program though, and they're coming.
That youth program, Mark Smith from Maine Athletic Fundraising has been telling me about the Orono youth program for a couple of years. And if you get a chance, when you talk to Hathaway on Monday, if you ask Hathaway about the Orono youth program, because they played them in the 7-on-7 in the fall, and he was very impressed. So to me, they've got numbers coming. It's just a matter of surviving until they get there. You know what I mean? And I think you're going to have that with a lot of schools as they come up. And my concern is in the next 5-10 years, everything's going to be a club sport, and everything's going to be done by town, and everything's going to be done by whatever. Not because of anything specific, but I just think the way that schools are funded is going to end up changing. I think the way a lot of this stuff is going to end up changing. I think you're going to find a lot of these extracurricular activities that we want these schools to provide aren't going to be financially feasible for them anymore.
Not the way we're going.
Not the way we're going.
You look at Vermont, part of it's because of their geography. They play AAU.
You want to talk some farmland that you've got to go across there.
AAU style in almost every sport.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those schools, we used to see it in hockey, the Chicago Young Americans and all this, Detroit Wheels. I said, wow, how do they have such great programs? And they said, well, there's no high school team. Everybody plays in this kind of the youth hockey program. And we see, especially those places where it's spread out like that in the heartland, you're not going to drive 3 hours to play a high school game.
100%.
So even though Oxford Hills to Skowhegan seems like it's that far, it's not, but it seems it.
Seems like it is. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back with some high school football coaches interviews for you here on Maine Athletic Fundraising Football Friday. Coach, you have a good time down in Bonnie Eagle tonight, and I'll be back here trying to make sure nothing blows up.
That would be good.
Sounds like a good idea.
It does.
Go Pats this weekend.
Yes, go Pats.
Sorry about your Red Sox.
I'll be texting you back and forth during that.
We'll take a break. We'll be right back.
Is your local school or group looking to raise money?
Our goal here at Maine Athletic Fundraising is to raise your program or group the most amount of money possible in the shortest amount of time, hassle-free.
Over the last 3 years, we've been able to raise over $10,000 every year, which has really allowed us to get the extra stuff the kids really need to run a successful program.
One of our biggest goals at Maine Athletic Fundraising is to really develop a relationship on the ground with the coaches, the community, and the boosters that are involved, and help bring them together and understand how important it is to fundraise.
Junior Trojan Football and Cheering would like to thank Maine Athletic Fundraising for allowing us to build this beautiful facility. We raised $18,000 in our first year with Maine Athletic Fundraising, $28,000 last year, and we hope to top that again this year.
That would also be helpful. Just a reminder again tonight, game of the week action that we're going to have here on MBR. We'll have Oxford Hills and Bonnie Eagle, and we'll have Edward Little and Scarborough. Also, Camden Hills at Mountain Valley will be on radio. Coming up, we'll have some coaches interviews for you here on a Maine Athletic Fundraising Football Friday from the Spectrum Healthcare Partners studios across the MBR radio network.
When you get hurt, we know you want to get right back into the game or back to the activity you love. With Ortho Access, Maine's only orthopedic walk-in clinic, you don't need an appointment. Plus, you'll save money compared to an emergency room visit. With locations in southern and central Maine, access to an orthopedic specialist is even easier. The orthopedic team at Spectrum Healthcare Partners. We're here to keep you out there.
I said they weren't connecting anything. I didn't realize he was watching TV and typing shit in all the time.
Which we drove it inside the 10, all three series, for a total of about 165 yards of accumulated yards in the first half, and we turned it over on downs in two separate. That was the difference in the game initially, but we drove the length of the field on them, and neither one of us punted. Then we opened up the third quarter. They stopped us. Conversely, they got the ball back. We stopped them. So about 4 minutes into the third quarter, they were up 3 scores to 1. Even football game. And we played. The kids played hard. Their execution was better, and we were really, really excited about where we were. But it was over very quickly too. When the tide changed, it changed quickly.
Did they?
Don't panic because Bangor's here. You got until 4:30.
I'm not panicking.
Did they do anything in particular that surprised you?
No, and this is right, and this is the thing. And again, this goes back to coaching and my staff. I thought we were greatly prepared, and again, it's the anatomy of our team is just we're just not big and strong enough and physical enough to match up with a great team like Thornton. However, in those first 3 drives in the first half, it took them 14 plays, 12 plays, and then they scored in 3 plays on that third drive. They physically wore us out, but they earned everything they got, especially the first 2 drives. We felt like we're in the game. We converted in our second series to make it 14-7. They scored quickly on us, but then we drove the length of the field, and with 4 seconds left, we were at the 9 on 3rd and goal from the 9, and we threw an incomplete pass. I mean, that's how the half ended. It could have been an even football game, but unfortunately it wasn't.
What kind of things do you expect to see out of Coney?
Geez, Coney's a lot like we are, except for they're even more diverse. Coach Lippert's outstanding coach. They have a lot of skilled players. Their quarterback is just a special athlete. Can run the ball as well as he throws the ball. He's a big, strong kid. Their O-line's got some size. Their tailback is a rugged runner, but they've got several wide receivers and an exceptional tight end. They're going to spread the field on us, but at the end of the day, I think they want to run the ball, tackle to tackle with their quarterback as much as they want to spread you out and throw it, in the flats and then throw it vertically. But it'll be a good challenge for us, but it's a challenge that, personally, we feel like we match up well if we come to play.
Sure. Now, of course, he was a quarterback, and he helps with the elite passing camp, and he's had some good quarterbacks. So, for me, I'd always be worried about they're going to throw the ball. But But it's funny, when it comes right down to it in high school, teams still like to run the ball.
Yeah, no, I think as much as they want to spread you out, they want to spread you out and run zone and run trap. And again, with a 200-pound athlete like Riley Garb, he's a good football player. He's a good physical, good multi-sport athlete. And if he could rush for 150 yards, I'm sure BL would like that a lot.
Sure. Any surprises when you look at the Class A conference this year? Anybody that everybody's kind of said, well, it kind of has feathered out the way everybody thought it would.
Yeah, I think that, on film, been able to watch some film with, some of those elite Class A teams, I think, and I don't think this is a surprise to any of the guys in the conference, but Sanford, I think, is as good as anyone. They challenged TA through and through. Again, later in that game when Thornton Academy they kind of imposed their will physically, but Sanford had plenty of chances in that game. I'm sure Coach Fallon would agree to that. But I don't think there's any surprises whatsoever. I think Oxford Hills kind of stubbed their toe a little bit against Sanford, and they'd probably like to play them again. And I think Sanford would like to play TA again, to be honest with you. But I haven't seen Bonnie Eagle yet, but I'm sure that they're outstanding. And what they did to Kennebunk, I'm sure they're very physical. And
Well, and they have a lot to prove. They were 5-4 last year, which is not usual for them. And
No.
so I did their first game, opening game against CL, and they were ugly.
Yeah.
They won. Although even in that game, just before halftime, it was still pretty even.
Well,
and they got 2 quick scores.
Well, that's good to know because they're coming up pretty soon.
Yeah. Well, they're going to run the same thing you are.
Yeah, right.
There's not a lot of surprises, especially when you can get any film you want.
Right.
You can see everything that they're doing.
Absolutely.
It was always that debate. Do you save that play and for a time that you can use it, or do you put it in and now they got to practice against it? Everybody debates that.
We don't keep anything. We just try to run plays that we think we're going to execute. And unfortunately, personally, our offensive playbook is pretty generic because we just haven't been able to execute what I would consider the next level of competency right now. And
sure.
Partly
it's
for
going
the
to take
new.
Some time.
It is, and I'm trying to be patient and keep a positive attitude. But
that wouldn't be one of your top skills, would it? Patience?
It would not, and it's been tough. It's been tough. We'd like to be a little bit more aggressive and a little more competent offensively. Defensively, we run well. If we can stay healthy, again, like everybody, we've had a couple nagging injuries, but because our depth is suspect, when you lose a good player, the next guy's just not physically ready typically to play all Friday night.
Well, Coach, good luck.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate it.
I'll talk to you next week.
All right, thank you.
Week 4, it's the Football Friday podcast presented by Maine Athletic Fundraising. Hanging out with Oxford Hills Vikings head football coach Mark Soren in advance of the Week 3 game against Bonnie Eagle on the road. Going to be a tough one, tough environment there, tough team. Let's talk a little bit about what you've seen so far this week on Bonnie Eagle. What do they look like this year, and what are some of the challenges you guys face this week with them?
They're a pretty complete package. They're experienced and they're big and they're athletic, and so and of course they always execute well. So that's sort of it. I actually thought they were a little bit older than they actually are. They look a lot like us in some ways. They've got about 5 seniors and 5 juniors and a sophomore on defense. We're a little younger on defense, but a lot of those kids played last year against us. So they've got a lot more returning experience really than we do. And they beat Scarborough. It's always tough telling exactly how good teams are early on. Right about now is when we start to figure that out. I mean, Stanford clearly was very good. I think we're a decent team too, and we hope to be competitive tomorrow, and I think it will be a competitive game.
Talking with Oxford Hills Vikings head football coach Mark Soren in advance of his team's game against Bonnie Eagle. What you guys must have seen a lot of things that you liked on film against Falmouth last week. Looked like you guys really were able to get the ground game going and get some things done.
Yeah, that was important to us to really get those blocking teams down and really sort of run that ball up the middle. And that was the goal we talked about. Really just running it kind of right down the middle, right down their throat, that first series, and see what we could do. Of course, we saw on film that we were a little bit bigger. They had some good athletes for sure, just not quite the same size, not quite the same depth we had, and we were able to do that, and we were able to really sort of exert our will in that game, and it was a nice bounce back for us because though we moved the ball okay against Stanford, we were the score dictated a little bit what we were able to do, but Stanford, they were bigger up front and pretty experienced in the defensive secondary, and so we struggled a little bit. I mean, there used to be games where we had 100 yards. In Stanford we had 310. So we did move, but we wanted to make sure that we had worked on the things that really weren't working for us against Stanford, and those things worked for us.
Talking with Oxford Hills Vikings head football coach Mark Soren on a Football Friday. How's the health go right now? You guys are, 3 games in, almost 4 games in now to a 9-game season, no bye weeks or anything like that. So, how are things looking on the health side of things? How's everybody feeling?
Actually, really good. I mean, there's always bumps and bruises at this point. You're not gonna get away from that. But for the most part, as far as the varsity goes, we have everyone available. There was a little bit of sicknesses going around. Really started right before the Stanford game, but the seems to have cleared itself out for the most part. We've had really actually some JV players that have been injured, but varsity we're okay. I think our kids work pretty hard in the off season, and I think that's one of the things that helps us stay healthy as we move into this. So hopefully things continue that way for us.
Now, last week our best and most player of the game was Noah Ofiero. Thought he had a great game on defense, good game on offense. That was some Gronk-like stuff out of the tight end position, H-back position out of him last week, and of course on defense, great stuff too. Let's talk a little bit about what he was able to accomplish last week.
Isaiah Ofiero.
Isaiah. Yes. Okay, I got you.
Yeah,
I got you.
yeah.
Yes.
We got both. We got both brothers on there. Isaiah is a true football player through and through. He loves it. I mean, I don't know what to say, but I've actually used him as an example. I said, if you can play football like Isaiah plays, then you love the game. And he's just a kid that, he's smart. He's big and strong. He actually is much faster, and it's always been the case. You should watch him play basketball. He's much faster than people think he is. He's a fast kid, and so we kind of use him as a jack of all trades. As a sophomore, there's still some learning going on, but really just sort of his mental outlook on the game, he just plays a little more experience than that. Even from the H position. We got J.J. Worcester, who's a two-time all-conference player, ahead of him, but when I have to give JJ rest, Isaiah goes in. He looks great. He does a lot of things. Both of those guys caught the ball well, and as important, probably more important than what they do catching is blocking, and they do a great job on that.
Talking with Oxford Hills Vikings head football coach Mark Soren. They'll be taking on Bonnie Eagle this Friday night. Of course, you can listen on 92.7 WOXO. You can watch it at MBR.org. Make sure you subscribe to the Facebook page to get notified. Coach, good luck this week, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
I'm here with Lisbon head football coach Chris Cates. Coach, a win at Mountain Valley, 14-6. Win is a win, but I got a feeling you weren't that pleased.
Well, anytime you go up to Rumford, it's a tough place to play, tough environment, and they're very physical, inside, both offensively and defensively, and I think they gave us some challenges that I don't want to say we weren't expecting, but they definitely took it to us a little bit on the interior there. But no, I think we left some points on the board for sure. Had a couple passes where guys wide open, and it is what it is. Good to get out of there with a win, but I'd like to see us capitalize on a few more of those opportunities.
The other teams that have played them, seems to me Mountain Valley's turned the ball over quite a bit. Were we able to create some turnovers?
I think they turned the ball over twice, one interception and maybe one fumble, but they didn't put the ball in the air as much against us as they did against Oak Hill. And part of that was because Oak Hill got up on them pretty early, so they kind of had to pass. I think Mountain Valley was able to hold the ball. I think they doubled us up in terms of number of plays ran offensively. So they had the ball for the majority of the game, and I think they kind of executed the game plan they wanted to. Holding the ball and keeping our offense off the field, and they did some pretty nice things over there.
Any particular kids or group that you'd like to single out?
I think my wide receivers played pretty well, both perimeter blocking and catching the ball and the opportunities that they had. It's a pretty thankless job playing receiver here usually, because it's a lot
pretty run oriented.
Yeah, a lot of blocking on the perimeter, but I think they've kind of embraced that. I think they did a pretty good job on the outside.
Yeah, I think it's interesting what kids, how they feel like they're part of what's going on, and boy, somehow if you can convince those wide receivers that the key blocks that they throw are the difference makers every time.
Well, and anytime you're in a spread type offense, it's always that outside block that's going to be the one that either springs you or doesn't spring you, and I think they've kind of embraced that role.
Now, who do you have this week, Coach?
We have Winthrop at home.
they've been very good offensively.
Well, I think they've been pretty good defensively too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot of good athletes on that team, and they fly around with the football, and definitely going to present some challenges to us. And talking about leaving points on the board, this is not a team that you can do that against, and we have to capitalize on every opportunity that we have if we're going to have a chance of beating these guys.
What's their what kind of an offense do they run?
They're a little bit of everything. I mean, they do some spread stuff, but they're also a power team as well. So you'll see them in some 3 and 2 back sets, but then the next play you might see them in empty. So it's tough to game plan for because they can beat you a few different ways, and definitely a pretty diverse offense.
Now, what do they do defensively? What kind of a team are they?
They're aggressive. I mean, they're going to play man on the outside. I mean, they're going to have 8 to 11 guys in the box, and they're going to come. And I think that's always been kind of Winthrop's MO is they're going to put some pressure on you, and they're going to kind of force you to beat them.
Anybody that's starting to emerge in the conference that you're surprised at, that you said, "Whoa, I didn't know they were going to be quite that good"?
I think everybody's kind of shaping up kind of where everybody thought they were going to be preseason. It's Spruce is playing well. Winthrop and Oak Hill are obviously having good seasons. So it's kind of what everybody expected them to be.
Anybody that you kind of surprised that they went the other way? I mean, you said, it looks about like we thought, but nobody in particular?
No, I think a couple teams have just been a little bit down on their luck a little bit, but you see Mountain Valley. You see Mountain Valley at 0-3, but I mean they lost us by 6. I mean they played Cape Elizabeth pretty tough in week 1, so I mean they could easily be sitting 2-1. So it's not it's not to say that their season is over by any means. I mean they got some talented kids over there, and I guess probably biggest surprise is probably in Class C with York. And we knew they were going to be good, but the manner in which they're beating people is.
They had a tough one this week, though. They got Levitt at Levitt. That'll be a tough test. In high school sports, you just never know. The kid gets hurt. One time I thought we had a pretty good team coming back in Skowhegan. My quarterback moved away.
Right.
Hello.
Right.
It's and most of us don't have 2 or 3 of those stacked up somewhere ready to go in.
Yeah, some of us don't have one. So it's
yeah, that's right. If you're lucky. Well, Coach, good luck, and I will talk to you next week.
Appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Take care. I'm here with EL head football coach Dave Sterling. Coach, tough one.
They're all tough. It's not going to be easy. And that's part of playing at the the level
Xavier
that we play at.
Levine, is that what his name is? Boy, he is.
He is an excellent athlete. Well, the Bickford kid made some excellent catches in coverage. Those are 2 incredible athletes. You get them on the field, and you get a team backed up a couple different times, and they're 3rd and 30. You've done just about everything else, then it comes down to Jimmy and Joe. Jimmy throws it to Joe, and Joe can out-jump the other person.
It seems I recall last year they played Hill. Was it last year or 2 years ago?
Last year.
He did the same thing. You had him by the foot, and he uncorked onto the end zone, and he went way up in the air.
Yep, on a 4th down play.
Yeah. I heard you say dinged up a little bit. Kids that young kids that you're expecting to maybe have improved and ready to play?
Yep, and that's part of a program. You've got to have, that's what we've been, we focus on right from the preseason is getting some of those guys in better physical shape with the weightlifting and trying to get them in that may not have been in as regularly as you wanted and understand the system. So some of those younger guys have stepped up extremely well.
Now you said on a night like this, you were at Walton, there was thunder, you had to come back over here to the high school.
Yep.
You said you did yoga.
Yeah, we do yoga. We do
That's
yoga
interesting. Do you do that
at least a
anyway?
couple times a week. We do weightlifting at least twice a week. We try to work on conditioning at least a half an hour, 2 days a week.
Sure.
And yoga is really good for these young athletes because they go through all the stressors of high school and what's the drama going on in their lives, and to get that 10 to 15 minutes of slowing their body down, focusing on being in the center of what they need to be in, and communicating with their inner body. It's huge not only for the mental aspects but the healing aspect of your body.
So do you have one of the coaches that understands what to do with that?
Coach from Tumbo has been doing that for a few years, and we've had offers from a few people within the community that teach yoga.
Nice.
And we'll probably reach out to them at some point. But it's a great.
Coaches do it along with them?
Yes.
Because I was going to say, because boy, the coaches are stressed.
I do mental yoga
There you go.
regularly
Yeah,
throughout
boy,
the day.
huh?
I count backwards from 100 a few times. Yep.
My wife always used to say, David, during the football season, keep a pad of paper next to the bed because you're going to be up turning the
Well,
light on
I had
and
my
writing
own
stuff down.
My own doctor has recommended several times. Dr. Stednicki has said you've got to get into yoga because you don't have any other releases
Sure.
during the season. And
Yeah.
well, I bought the yoga mat and I just go to meditation whenever I look at it.
Well, I don't think people understand football coaching, unlike some of the others. And I'm not taking anything away from the other sports, but it's 7 days a week.
Yeah.
You're scouting, you're watching films.
It's through the summer
you,
now.
You
It's,
do the weightlifting, there's all that
if we were in a
stuff.
different part of the country, you'd have all the spring workouts as well. And, we do a lot of off-season conditioning. And, yeah, it's a year-round aspect. And as well, Coach Wing, we don't obviously have to drive to exchange tapes anymore. That would take up a good couple hours a week.
On a Sunday.
But now you've got to break down film as well as the aspect of having it online. You want to break it down so your players can watch it when they're at home, not just sit 3 hours of Mike Haley clicking forward and back on a 9mm film for 3 hours. But
You've been there and done that, huh?
Too many times.
Yeah, that's for sure. What are you expecting from Scarborough? Flaker is there.
Yes, an amazing
big
athlete.
guy.
He's I believe, a
Incredibly
100-yard dash champion. I watched him in the Portland game, one of the exchange videos. They ran a simple stretch play to the left on the opponent's 20 going in against Portland. It was stopped at the sideline. He bent the play all the way back to midfield, then outran everybody to the end zone on the far sideline. And we've been trying to coach up our kicker. Do not kick it to this man for this reason, because we've seen twice in video where they kicked it to him. Bangor did, as well as Portland, and it was probably the worst mistake they could have made in the game.
I can remember so many times talking about Coach Haley saying to the backside defensive end, you got to get deeper where the ball is and trail deep. So if he turns and comes back, you're
there were guys that had the angle on Flaker, and they didn't have a chance.
They didn't
have a chance.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good football team. I think Class A, A to Z, has been a good,
very
pretty good looking crew. And let's see, what else I want to ask you. I guess I was talking about when you come inside, if you had to be in the whole practice, do you have a set routine or things that you want to?
Yeah, we try to get, the weightlifting, the yoga. We try to get, mental aspect if we need to do film to review. We've already done our film, as well as we've had, our guys have logged in as to what the amount of time they need to do, usually by Thursday. And then we try to, keep it as light as possible. If you're in the gymnasium for more than a half an hour, it's overkill. And last year we were able to utilize the indoor turf facility down at Ingersoll, but the problem with that, it's only 25 yards wide, so you can't really line up offensively, and you have to line up like we did here in the EL gym, going the length of the court, and you can't really run plays. You could just, you're basically going through air at that point.
Yeah.
But it's a great facility to have in the city of Auburn. We just don't get to utilize it because it's a cost issue.
Sure. Yeah. Well, Coach, thanks. Good luck. I appreciate you taking the time to stay after, and it's been a long day for you, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you, Coach Wing, for making the time.
I'm here with Oak Hill head football coach Station Doucette. Coach, game against Winthrop, it was the autism game.
Yeah.
I guess I'm going to say that probably the finish wasn't the way you wanted it.
No, I think we lost to a very tough, physical Winthrop team. Very well coached, very athletic, and they played very good football, and we have a lot to work on, and we're back to the drawing board. On to Madison.
So you have a bye this week,
yes.
Which I'm interested. How you break up the 2 weeks, if you will, for practice as opposed to one?
We've done a little more extreme on every focus. What that means is on our condition day, we're a little harder on conditioning. On our film breakdown, we spend more time on film breakdown. Today was about being physical. It's probably the most physical practice we've had since I've been here at Oak Hill. Kids got into it and they had a good time, and so I think we're going extreme, spending more time on individual things and trying to break things up and have a little bit of change. So
I only had it once, and I said I probably lost more sleep, well, not more sleep, but a lot over how to do that week. I ended up giving them like the first of this week off, Monday, Tuesday, that kind of thing, get back in the classroom and whatever, and then on Friday had like some sort of a goal line live with points and few plays, and the winners go in and the losers stay and run. And
That's kind of what we did today.
And everybody that bets on the winner,
Yeah.
you bet your life, we called it.
Yeah.
If you bet on the team that lost, you run with them.
Yeah.
So a lot of cheering.
Well, we kind of did something like that
Nice.
today. And we're also putting a point of emphasis on grades.
Oh boy, yeah.
We're talking about that, and we're focusing on that because we don't want any reasons to affect the long season or potentially a playoff season. So we're trying to cover all our bases as coaches and players, student players.
When I was an assistant coach in Bangor, Bob Simblick was the basketball coach. Long time, tremendously successful. He had some interesting rules about his basketball players. He told them when they leave the locker room, they all get a shower, whatever, they better have on a hat, a jacket, gloves, and he was sitting like this when you can look out and watch him walk out. I'll tell you what, you don't want to walk out of there without having that stuff. Everybody's going to run,
Yeah.
and just stuff like that. He said, no, sickness. He said they get sick or they're ineligible, because in those days, ineligible, you were gone for the whole season.
Yeah.
Interesting. Coaching, people think coaching is just show up and
No,
call
you
the
wear many
plays.
hats.
Yeah, you sure do. And I used to say, I had lunch with Gus LeBlanc today, and I said, I spent more time worrying defensively, even though I was a quarterback. I spent all my time worrying about how to defense the other team. And I used to have a pad. My wife said, put a pad next to the bed because you're going to be up half the night worrying. You might as well write the stuff down, So I know you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So, Coach, we're 4 games in, I guess. 4 games, right?
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
So halfway through, is there a team or a couple teams that have emerged that you expected, and then maybe a couple that you didn't expect?
No, well, we expected Winthrop to be the top
Yeah.
of the league. They're 17, 18-year-old men. They're tough kids.
Yeah.
Coaching staff does a great job. Dave is one of the best coaches out there. I coached with Dave.
Yeah.
I coached with Dave the Lobster Bowl. I got the utmost respect for that man. He pays attention to detail. Norm Toombs, I've coached against Norm for years. Norm is a very, very specific, detail-oriented coach. And defensively, they do a really good job. They're physical. And we expected that. And we expected other teams to play well. We expect our whole conference to be tough.
Sure.
That's just the bottom line. I think Class D football is tough right down the line. I think anybody can beat anybody any given day.
Well, and it's going to make the situation for the playoffs really fun.
I think so.
Somebody could come on at the end and really be.
And I think that's what we try to hang our hat on.
Sure.
The last couple of years, we were not the same team in the playoffs that we started out.
Yes.
So we're hoping for, just to get better each week. We've moved on to Madison. We're going to move on to somebody else the week after and the week after. And our goal is to get better every day. And mentally, physically, even emotionally. And in grades, get better in school. So we're teaching the kids to try to be champions on and off the field. And if we do that, we will get better.
Sure. Well, Coach, thanks. I know nobody likes a bye week, but I'm sure you'll work your way through it and get ready for Madison.
All right, thank you.
All right, take care.
It's Football Friday podcast. We now catch up with Poland head football coach Spencer Emerson on a Football Friday. It's presented by Maine Athletic Fundraising. Coach, let's do a little comparison. Where are you headed into week 4 this year as opposed to where you were at going into week 4 last year?
It's funny. We were just talking about that as a staff. Last year we had a couple games. One didn't go our way, but we were 2-1 at this point in the season. However, I'm not convinced we were a better football team. I think we just had a better situation around us. If I'm being honest, we played 3 really good teams. Spruce Mountains, one we lost, we lose by 3 points in a game where you gain 500 yards of offense. We figure out, how to win a game. I still got to learn that. Week 2, you run into a buzzsaw in Wells High School, and then week 3, turn over the ball 4 times against a 3-0 York team. And it's just a tough situation right now. So we're just a team that's fighting to get a win. And in comparison to last year, I think last year we were a little bit more senior laden because we had a large senior group, a lot of contributors. However, this year we just got to focus on executing and taking care of the football.
What sort of challenges does Lake Region provide as you guys have a big road game this Friday night?
Well, they're learning how to win. They're 2-1, and they've won some games because they just kind of play simple, disciplined football. They run 3-4. They run some, split backs under center, and then some spread stuff. The quarterback's a really good athlete. He's been able to get on the edge and use his speed. I think us is about getting to the point of attack, pursuit tackling, and offensively taking care of the football. As much as we throw it, the quarterback has to make good decisions. And if he makes good decisions, we feel like we'll be able to do what we got to do. But unfortunately, up until this point, he hasn't taken care of the football as good as we want to, and that's a byproduct of all 11 people and all 12, including me, the play caller. So we're still trying to figure out how to execute the best of our ability.
What anybody showing up on tape that's been maybe improving a little bit each week, gradually, that's starting to show out when you're watching film?
Yeah, our league is just so good. To think that Lake Region, us, and I haven't seen much of Morse, other than one game, are the bottom of the league. I'm confident in saying if we're the bottom of the league's pretty good. Moving up to Class C and playing these teams, and Wells coming along, I've seen Levitt on tape, and they just seem to be about as good as it gets in terms of small school football in Maine. They just, they have 11 guys on the field all capable of making big plays. I'd say Freiburg, it's funny, they've played in close, every single game's been a 1-point to 6-point game. So I watch them on tape and I go, golly, they're physical. And they just got, they just played for a gold ball and they lost it. So I'm sure they're fueled up, ready to try to get back to that championship game. So I would say the whole league. If I had to put a tab on one team that I saw and went, wow, it was the Lebanon Hornets.
Of course, we'll have them next week. Actually, looking forward to broadcasting from your facility next week. So that'll be a good one. Love it at Poland.
Excited to have you. I've been begging you for a while now, so I'm glad you guys finally come.
Well, you need to thank the good folks at Oxford Hills for scheduling homecoming on a Saturday. That makes it that frees up the Friday night. That frees up the Friday night for us, and then we're like, hey, we can make some things happen here, right? So, of course, we've been wanting to, and it just so happened that Levitt's kind of in the region too, and it's like, hey, we're always trying to get them on, so it worked out. It worked out pretty well. Worked out pretty well for you. On your side of the ball and on your team, who are some names that maybe haven't gotten some credit yet that you would like to hear maybe get a little bit more as you truck through your year?
Yeah, we had a senior, Levi Lawrence, who wasn't available in the first couple games. He played last week, and while we lost the game, he had 150 yards receiving and a touchdown, and that's not average for high school football.
Right.
Had a great performance. Joe Levesque up front is a sophomore for us. He just played his tail off, wearing himself out on both sides of the ball. And I still think we have a couple other players that, we have guys that haven't really, been able to break through and have those breakout games, but they're very talented players. But our senior receiver, Levi Lawrence, really had a great game last Friday. And Joe Levesque's just been rock solid up front for us on both sides of the ball. So those are two guys that probably go unnoticed when you look at our roster. However, they're very key players for us.
Poland head football coach Spencer Emerson talks with us here on a Maine Athletic Fundraising Football Friday, live from the Spectrum Healthcare Partners broadcast booth. They're on the road this Friday night, September 27th, against Lake Region. You can catch that. There'll be a 7 o'clock kickoff. And, of course, we'll have Poland on our airwaves next Friday night, Levitt at Poland, a special event. We'll have a 6:30 pregame for you on MBR.org. Coach, good luck this week, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you.
I'm here with Levitt head football coach Mike Hathaway. Coach, a trip back in time to Foxcroft Academy.
Yeah, it was a long trip, but we talked before the game. We'd never played Foxcroft before, so there wasn't really any history there per se. But Coach White and I go not, I wouldn't say way back, but we've done a lot of lobster bowls together. He's a spread offense guy, so we talk a lot in the off season. Successful trip. We got a win, but also, just a first-class program up there that Danny runs. The boosters provided us with a meal after the game before we went home. Everything from the field to the setup to the game was just run in a very first-class way. So it's nice to go somewhere and see that. And, before the game, and it was coordinated kind of by Coach Lippert at Coney. We had done it with, I think there were 14 or 15 different staffs, but both us and Foxcroft, the entire staff, wore the autism awareness T-shirts, and went out before the game and had a picture taken, and just got to talk about it and kind of make people more aware by using the small platform that we may have to publicly just make a statement there. Obviously means a lot to Coach Lip, means a lot to me too. My wife has spent her entire career in that field, helping kids with autism. So, for us to get the word out and have the chance to do that, and to have the chance to do that with Foxcroft, is pretty good. So.
Yeah, I think it's a much bigger platform than you realize it is.
Yeah,
A lot
maybe.
of people follow your team, and I think you posting on Twitter was fantastic. It was a great picture, and like you said, your wife and others. My son's girlfriend that's what she does. She works with multiple handicapped kids, and autism is one of the spectrums, and it's incredible. The patience and the caring and those kind of things. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and it certainly sends a good message to our own players that it's important that we look out for other people in this world and do what we can, and if we get a chance to help in some way, then we should. So.
I've always said going to Foxcroft is like going to the 60s.
Yeah,
the school, they've
right.
done some improvements, of course, and it's a gorgeous place.
Yep.
But it's a trip back in time.
It's definitely an old style town. You come through town and there's like an old school movie theater and old Pat's Pizza and stuff like that. So it's a pretty cool place, and I've spent some time up there during some lobster bowls. So fun to be back up there again.
Tell us about the game. Who played well for you?
We got some good play out of our offensive line. It really opened up some holes. We had 200-yard rushes. Wyatt ran for around 130 from the quarterback spot. And, Garrett J. Bush had 101 on 6 carries from the tailback spot. So, to get that kind of ground game going was important. We also, our short pass game was pretty good. We were able to, get some completions and get some guys out in space. But, I just like the way our line's playing. It doesn't really seem to matter much who the back is. That's our fourth different 100-yard rusher for the season. So we're spreading the ball around pretty good, and those guys are blocking pretty good up front. And, Cam Jordan on defense was a beast in the first half. 3 sacks. He was all over the field. Tommy Casey and Riley Parmenter at linebackers as well. We did a nice job. Logan Martin for Foxcroft is an excellent running quarterback, and he's as slippery as they come probably, but we did a pretty good job of caging him in and not letting him hurt us with big plays. So,
what's it like when you face a team? Because a lot of teams are running the spread and the read and whatever now. What's it like when you face a team like that? Is the preparation different?
Yeah, I mean, not so much in the fact that I think this is this week we're going on maybe the 5th or 6th shotgun team we played in a row going back to the preseason. So it seems like more and more teams are doing it. And when we have our camp in the summer and when we kind of go through the preseason, we're often going against our own stuff. So for us, we kind of have a plan of how we would defend us. And, we kind of work that through and apply it to spread teams, depending on their different strengths or whatever. But certainly the one thing that you look at first with a spread team is how much does the quarterback run the ball? Are they going to be a pass first with a sit in the pocket type of guy? Or is it going to be a team where they, a lot of sprint out, a lot of read options, things like that? Because those are kind of different animals. So that's kind of what we look at first. And then we kind of build our plan from there. And, formationally, what do they use? There's a lot of trips, a lot of empty. That can affect, what we play for coverages or even what we put for personnel on the field. We have a base package. We have a nickel package. We have a dime package. So depending on, formationally what they give us, do they use tight ends? Kind of dictates what we do on the other side. So it's always a chess game. And I guess luckily we're facing a lot of these teams early. So you can carry some things over week to week, but also add a little bit. We showed some things against Foxcroft that we hadn't shown prior to that worked pretty well. So it's a chance for us to kind of evaluate week to week what are some things we can put in the game plan that might help us.
It's always a debate in my mind of whether or not you show something and then they have to practice against it, or you save it for that time. It's a debate, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's always a discussion amongst the staff of, do we do this? Do we not do this? And, I think, we kind of decide later in the week than early in the week. Around Thursday, we get a feel for, we really have this down. We need to use it so that we've got some game experience using it and see how it goes. And, you also think a little bit about, what are some things that we want to, that we want other teams to have to prepare for to make their practices a little more difficult. But also, what are some things that we might want to hold back? And even within the game, you get that too, where sometimes you want to hold some things back until after halftime because they don't have a chance to adjust if you can wait until the third quarter to put it out there. So, there's a lot of thought that goes into that. And but in general, I would say I'm always on the side of if it's going to work good, we should probably use it. And if we put that on tape and somebody else sees it, then maybe we go a step further and come up with something off from that. So.
I used to bug me when somebody had a special, either a punt formation or an extra point formation. You got to spend
Take some time.
huge amount of time getting ready to defend it. I always said, even though I was a quarterback like you, I spent all my time on defense.
Yeah,
during the week, getting ready. What are we going to do against that?
Yeah, I mean, we're lucky here where we've got some guys who are pretty good in that department with Coach Bonavie and the defensive staff. So I don't, I get into a lot of the game planning on the weekend and on Sunday when we meet and Monday when we kind of, game plan with the team and go through our walkthrough. But after that, I'm usually running the look-o. So, once in a while I'll come up with a little bit of a suggestion or just something I might see from the other side that, I'm like, maybe that doesn't look so good or whatever. But for the most part, those guys, they do that, and that's why they're here, and they do a pretty good job, and it lets me kind of focus on, more on offense. So.
I'm talking with Coach Mike Hathaway of Abbott High School. Mike Haley, when we coached together at Oak Hill, he used to say there was one year, I think it was the second year we were together, 5 weeks in a row, the team we were playing had a totally different offense than anything we'd seen before. And he said, whatever hair I got left, I'm pulling out because we got to, you got to change your style enough to make a difference in it.
Yeah, you do, and one of the things that we talked about as well is you can't, we face a few spread teams in a row. You can't play them the same way every time because then teams are going to see like, oh, when they're in, 4 wide, they're in this coverage all the time. So we really spent a lot of time this week trying to, mix some things up and just, handle some formations a little bit differently and, kind of to see what we can do and if we can handle it, but also to, give teams more to prepare for. You get around mid-season and you'd like to start shaving some time off from practice, in the effort to keep kids healthy and engaged and, just to maintain your stamina through the season. But at the same time, there's more to cover because teams are doing more and showing more and, everything from the swinging gates on extra points to fake punts and different formations and you get a lot of rugby punt teams now and things like that. There's just a lot of things to fit in there. So
yeah, you can't just walk and talk. You got to do physical.
No,
things
you gotta rep it out. Kids are gonna they're gonna learn different ways, but I would say the majority of them learn the best by doing it. So you got to try to get as many many reps as you can, so that it becomes important to get a good tempo in practice and get as many plays out as you can in each period and things like that. So it's things we just keep working on, try to get better at.
Coach, how about somebody that you kind of been surprised by, you didn't really expect? I know you've talked a little bit of a couple young linemen.
Yep.
Anybody else in particular that has just jumped out at you?
Yeah, in the defensive line, we've had a bunch of different guys rotating through there. Jake Spagnardi, I think he's a senior for us. He started last year. He might be about at the point where he's finally getting healthy again. Last week was really the first week he had a full week of practice and got to play, and he looked a lot better. He played a little bit the week before, but hadn't really played that well. So we were kind of happy with the way, he's progressing up front. It's going to be nice to get a few healthy bodies back here as the year goes on. And then offensively, another kid who I think is on the cusp is Jaden Banks. He's a sophomore for us, and he really has had some great JV games. We didn't play him yesterday. And we think he's going to be a bigger part of the game plan, maybe on both sides of the ball this week. York throws the ball quite a bit, and Jaden's a pretty good cover guy for us in secondary. So that's a kid, and Keegan Melanson has really had an outstanding year at wideout. He's been big for us. He kind of, because he doesn't carry the ball, he's probably the last guy that people think about on our offense, maybe. But he's definitely, a guy that, on the perimeter, he usually gets a pretty good matchup. So. That's the guy we've been going to pretty regularly, and he's had a nice start to the season.
I just saw Wanda Wood McLean in the hallway, her 36th year of coaching field hockey. And I said, I think one of the biggest changes for me is how young the kids are on the teams. I remember I coached way back a long time ago, as you know. Freshmen, we didn't even know what they looked like. I mean, you saw them once in a while, but they had their own everything.
Practice,
they certainly were running our things and all of that stuff, but now freshmen are playing. And that's a huge step for a young kid to come in and play early in the fall.
Yeah, we had never had a freshman, we had never really had a freshman start until, recently. When Jordan Herson, when he was a freshman, played a little bit of wide receiver for us. Mike Austin, if you go way back to the mid-2000s. Mike played a little bit as a freshman at linebacker and on some special teams, but we really had never had a guy. And this senior class, we've got 4 of those guys who started as freshmen. And a lot of it really was just because of the weakness and lack of depth, in our upperclassmen in those years. We had a couple classes back to back that only had 9 or 10 kids in them, and forced those guys to play. So, Cole Morin, Camden Jordan, Alan Peabody, Riley Parmenter, those 4 guys are 4-year starters now at this point. So, we didn't really want to play him back then, and I know for Al too, a strong safety at 130 pounds maybe back then, and he was pretty tough, but he didn't last the whole season, and that was tough on him. And Riley was playing defensive line back then as a freshman. He wasn't even a linebacker. So those guys definitely took their lumps, and it's something that I'd like to avoid. But certainly, I think now you're seeing sophomores that are a little more ready than they used to be. And part of that is a big deal is the weight room. I mean, those 3 guys that play for us, Poirier and Twitchell and Buta, I mean, those guys they're lifters. So, their bodies don't look like sophomore body. They're all well over 6 feet tall. They're all well over 225 pounds. And, they're strong. So, if you have that component, I think in football, that's the key. If you don't have that, you better be really, really skilled as a wideout or something like that, or you can't really do it. So, but yeah, you see, I mean, we played a sophomore quarterback last year for the first time ever too. So, those guys it definitely, definitely is happening.
Tell me really quickly about York. I think they're still undefeated.
Yeah, they're 3-0. They beat the big win at Cape 2 weeks ago. Big win at Poland last week, where they put a lot of points up. They beat Oak Hill in a cross-class game week 1 and handled them pretty easy. So they're flying pretty high. I think they're looking at this as a little bit of a measuring stick game for them coming in here, and I think it's going to be a good game. They're a spread offense. They can score a lot of points. Tegan Hines was a sophomore starter last year at quarterback, and he's back. They really have several backs they can get the ball to, and I think they've made a lot of strides on defense from last year. I think last year when we played them, the game was kind of a blowout, and defensively they had a little bit of a hard time with our run game, but they look much sounder on that side of the ball. They also, the second year of their new coaching staff, they seem to have a better handle on things in terms of what they're doing with their schemes, and fewer mistakes and things like that. And it's a team that was young last year and is a year older. So we're looking forward to it. Our schedule's been great so far. You talk Freiburg and Foxcroft and Herman. Those are 3 really good football teams that are going to win a lot of games, and York's no different. So you like having tough games all the way through. It's what's going to make you better.
Yep. Well, Coach, good luck.
Sounds good.
I'll see you next week.
All right.
All right, take care. I'm here with Darren Hartley, the head football coach at Lewiston High School. Coach, I looked at the overall score sheet, and it looked like a pretty tight ball game in the first half.
Coach, we never punted in the first half, and we didn't turn the ball over. Thornton didn't turn the ball over. They had the ball 3 series in the first half. We had it 3 series. We drove it inside the 10, all 3 series, for a total of about 165 yards of accumulative yards in the first half, and we turned it over on downs on 2 separate occasions inside the red zone, and that was the difference in the game initially. But we drove the length of the field on them, and neither one of us punted. Then we opened up the third quarter. They stopped us. Conversely, they got the ball back. We stopped them. So about 4 minutes into the third quarter, they were up 3 scores to 1, but it should have been an even football game.
Sure.
And the kids played hard. Their execution was better, and we were really, really excited about where we were, but it was over very quickly too. When the tide changed, it changed quickly.
Don't panic because Bangor's here. You have until 4:30.
I'm not panicking.
Did they do anything in particular that surprised you?
No, and this is right, and this is the thing. And again, this goes back to coaching and my staff. I thought we were greatly prepared, and again, it's the anatomy of our team is just we're just not big and strong enough and physical enough to match up with a great team like Thornton. However, in those first 3 drives in the first half, it took them 14 plays, 12 plays, and then they scored in 3 plays on that third drive. They physically wore us out, but they earned everything they got, especially the first 2 drives. We felt like we're in the game. We converted in our second series to make it 14-7. They scored quickly on us, but then we drove the length of the field, and with 4 seconds left, we were at the 9. on 3rd and goal from the 9, and we threw an incomplete pass. I mean, that's how the half ended. We should have. It could have been an even football game, but unfortunately, it wasn't.
What kind of things do you expect to see out of Coney?
Geez, Coney's a lot like we are, except for they're elite, even more diverse. Coach Lippert's outstanding coach. They have a lot of skilled players. Their quarterback is just a special athlete. Can run the ball as well as he throws the ball. He's a big, strong kid. Their O-line's got some size. Their tailback is a rugged runner, but they've got several wide receivers and an exceptional tight end. They're going to spread the field on us, but at the end of the day, I think they want to run the ball, tackle to tackle with their quarterback as much as they want to spread you out and throw it, in the flats and then throw it vertically. But it'll be a good challenge for us, but it's a challenge that, personally, we feel like we match up well if we come to play.
Sure. Now, of course, he was a quarterback, and he helps with the elite passing camp, and he's had some good quarterbacks. So, for me, I'd always be worried about they're going to throw the ball. But
yeah.
But it's funny, when it comes right down to it, in high school, teams still like to run the ball.
Yeah, no, I think as much as they want to spread you out, they want to spread you out and run zone and run trap. And again, with a 200-pound athlete like Riley Garb, he's a good football player. He's a good physical, good multi-sport athlete. And if he could rush for 150 yards, I'm sure BL would like that a lot.
Sure. Any surprises when you look at the Class A conference this year? Anybody that everybody's kind of said, well, it kind of has feathered out the way everybody thought it would.
Yeah, I think that, on film, been able to watch some film with, some of those elite Class A teams, I think, and I don't think this is a surprise to any of the guys in the conference, but Sanford, I think, is as good as anyone. They challenged TA through and through. Again, later in that game when Thornton Academy they kind of imposed their will physically, but Sanford had plenty of chances in that game. I'm sure Coach Fallon would agree to that. But I don't think